Denver Broncos Mile High View, no commercials, no bullshit. So I was listening to state-sponsored Denver Bronco radio. You would think, after listening to them, free agency is a cancer. Well, it is if you pick the wrong players. And unfortunately, the Denver Broncos, you have to bring in free agents. The Denver Broncos do. They kept saying, "Oh, but we have so many holes to fill." Yeah. Here's the thing. They're going about this thinking that the draft is something like ramen noodles. You just add water. You may be able to get one or two guys you can plug in. Okay? That's it. Everybody else has to be developed. The teams that are good, they are drafting to develop players. The teams that are shitty think that they're going to use the draft to create rosters with. Instant rosters with. That is absolutely the stupidest way. And if you do that, you're going to be continually floundering all the time. You have to go to free agency to fill in extreme needs, and then you're going to have to go to the draft to develop those players. Now, they were talking about defense, and that's what I'm going to talk about now really quick. Just kind of a brief on this. They were just oohing and awing Chris Jones of the Kansas City Chiefs. Well, Chris Jones is set to make market value at a quarterback level. High-paid quarterback, $19 million. Okay, a $19 million figure. Top pay. Kansas City will most likely franchise tag him, or they will try to retain him. Yes, it would be great to have Chris Jones, of course, and that was the only one worthy of their. But you're going to have to go down the next notch and look for the next Chris Jones. Who knows what Chris Jones is going to do next year anyway? Look for the next up-and-coming in free agency. And if anybody can do it, Vic Fangio could do that. Then you bring in other defensive linemen for development through the draft. That's the way you're supposed to do it. Now, the other thing is linebacking. The thing with this Denver Bronco channel, the state-sponsored radio, I know that they're used to these guys that have been around them, but quite frankly, linebacking hasn't got the job done. Todd Davis is one of the highest-paid inside linebackers, and he sucks. I mean, he's a good backup. He's probably a top-tier backup. Shouldn't say he sucks, but he's a top-tier backup. And he's making two. And again, the Broncos, the reason that the linebacking needs to be revamped is because they cannot. Well, first of all, Kelcy is just nobody can lock him down. San Francisco did a decent job of doing that, but they have linebacking. But it's not just Kelcy. The Denver Broncos has struggled with tight ends. That's glaring linebacker problems. So I think Cory Littleton, who they bemoaned, it's too much money. Cory Littleton is going to demand some extra money, but it's not going to be blow out the budget stuff. You'd be insane not to bring Cory Littleton in. You'd be absolutely insane not to bring Cory Littleton in. And then get somebody in the draft that you can bring up. And again, you're not going to take care of these needs in the draft. You're a guy a linebacker you get in the draft is not going to take care of Kelcy. Okay, he's not going to be able to handle Kelcy. Now Littleton can do that, but and he can develop a guy to do that. It's kind of like with Courtland Sutton. Courtland Sutton was brought in, but he was running lazy routes. He wasn't really doing what he was doing this second year because he had a veteran get on him and say, "Look, buddy, you got to start running routes and run them correctly. You can't just be out here jogging around." And he got developed. Okay, and that's what's needed is development. Now, cornerback is the trickiest one. Because there really isn't anybody out there. Josh Norman's too old. Jimmy Smith's too old. They're locked down. I would because Bradley Roby, can you get him back here and have him, maybe, he's got a bad taste in his mouth. I really like, out of all of them, I like Logan Ryan, but I think, again, he's more of a lockdown, he is more of a slot type of cornerback. And that's what Chris Harris wants to be, a slot type cornerback. But that's kind of the role that Kareem Jackson's playing in safety as a slot, is covering the slot. We don't need two of these guys. And Harris, he doesn't want to have to cover Tyreek Hill anymore because he can't do it. He knows. It's not just Tyreek Hill. He was getting turned around by every marquee receiver, and it was on footage, on video, and he knows it. And he probably would be a better slot guy than a lockdown guy. I mean, you can't blame him 100%. He is what he is. He probably is a really good slot. But then they brought in Kareem Jackson. So you don't need two of them. But you need somebody to lock him down. And like I said, Logan Ryan, I don't know. He's more of the again, the slot. But I think you could bring in Ronald Darby of Philadelphia, who could, I think, at least slow Tyreek Hill down. And then you draft corners and develop them with Darby. With Darby, now, I'm not saying Darby's the end all be all. Believe me, but right now there just really isn't somebody that can step in and you'd have to pay him to lock down and go stride to stride with Hill. Darby is about as good as it gets right now, but that's a glaring need that they're going to have to do because they are going to get burned by top tier receivers. Let's start with Tyreek Hill. And again, Broncos, they didn't even want to talk about that. How do we stop Kansas City's offense or at least slow them down? You got to go into free agency and get a corner. You're going to have to cut Harris, or you're going to have to cut Kareem Jackson, one of the two. But Kareem Jackson serves that safety situation. But, it's just you're going to have to bring in at least one guy in corner in free agency. I just don't think there's any way around it. And Darby right now, if you out there think there's a better one, but again, I think Josh Norman and Jimmy Smith are just too old to cover top younger, up-and-coming, the 26, 27-year-old top-tier receivers, 25-year-old top-tier receivers. I just think they're too old to lock them down now. So you need somebody a little bit younger. So that's my pick. But this whole idea that the draft is some sort of ramen noodle situation, you just add water and don't worry, you got a meal. It's all about development. The draft, you don't get yourself psyched up about the draft like if you're going to think that these guys are going to be instant stars. Well, how can they do that when they don't have good veteran leadership to begin with? And like I said, yes, you'll probably get one or two of them that can start, but that's going to be it. What you want to do is you want to be able to develop, and that's why I say you're going to have to go get somebody on the line. You're going to have to get a linebacker. And right now, I'll have to look into the line because I don't think you're going to get Chris Jones. I would bring in Littleton. I think that would be huge. And I think that, like I said, Ronald Darby as cornerback. Get rid of Harris, get rid of Harris and let him go to a team where he can play, where he's better suited as a slot guy. It's just really dismal out there with this free agency, and I'm not expecting anything special from the Denver Broncos. They've sucked 100% at free agency, and if you don't get that right, if you don't start bringing in some veterans, that can develop at least even for a year or 2 years. Develop your draft picks. You're just going to be floundering, and then that's what I see. I don't see any changes. I don't know. Maybe Vic Fangio. That is the only hope that the Denver Broncos have. That these idiots that are on at the Bronco channel who don't know their ass from a hole in the ground. Hopefully, Vic Fangio can bring in some, and it seems to me he is pretty key when it comes to bringing in. When it comes to bringing in free agents, although I don't know what he was thinking bringing in Bryce Callahan, or was that Elway? Now, the rumor was it was more Elway than it, but I can't, seeing he was a Chicago Bear, I can't believe that Fangio didn't have a say in that. And here's Bryce, let's go over Bryce Callahan really quick. Can he lock down Tyreek Hill? I do not believe with his injury that he's going to come back being the same player that he was. If he is, more power to him, and the Broncos for having some patience. I hate to say it, but Bryce Callahan may be the only thing they have. And Bryce Callahan may be, but I just don't see him being able to take care of a Tyreek Hill, being the same Bryce Callahan he was. So, he's going to have to make a miracle comeback. To be honest with you, to compete with today's top tier wide receivers. It's just the way it is. And they'll probably keep him and run with him. But if he doesn't get out there, then you've floundered, you've squandered your free agency. The Denver Broncos are going to be in serious trouble. It's going to be another long year for them.